Today we're at AZ Dog Smart Academy and we're speaking to Will Bruner. And Will, I want to learn about your two favorite breeds that you like to train the most.
Two favorite breeds? Ooh, that's hard. Honestly, one of my favorite breeds are, believe it or not, are pugs. And the reason I say that is not that they're easy to train, because sometimes they can be a challenge, but I've never met an unhappy pug. So that meant to me, and pug owners tended to be happy too, I think, because their dogs were a little weird looking, and people who like weird dogs like me are a little weird. And probably one of the other breeds that I really like, and mostly this is when they're working, is I do like border collies. Now I probably would never own one myself, just because they can be a real challenge as well, and they require a lot of energy and time. But I love to watch them work when they're herding sheep, because I really like to see what hundreds of years of breeding have done, and really how well they work with their handlers. So kind of opposite ends on the spectrum.
Thank you. Will, can you give an example of your favorite training technique for the most challenging situation?
One of my favorite training techniques is actually a game that I call. It's called the Follow Me game. And what I do is I start with a dog on a pretty long leash, longer than normal, and I move around, and before the dog gets to the end of the leash, I call the dog and reward it when it gets back to me, and then I'll change and go a different direction. And I want to make it a game, and what this does is teach the dog to always have one ear or one eye on what I'm doing, because if I change direction and the dog comes running after me because he thinks it's a game, then that dog is paying really good attention. And it also helps you with leash walking techniques, because the dog learns to pay attention to you as opposed to what's at the other end of the leash. So I do that a lot with puppies, and sometimes to help people who are having leash walking issues. And also a fun way to just start some initial training with your dog is just getting him helping him focus.
Okay. Will, can you give an example of where you had to use your brains versus your brawn in your training?
Actually, I can give you a couple. My background is actually working with zoo animals and exotic animals, and one of the big differences between them and the dog is that wild animals don't do things to make you happy. They do things to make themselves happy. So, and also, you're not telling a 300-pound tiger to do anything it doesn't want to do. So a lot of the training we use in the zoo industry that I have done is about having to help figure it out using your mind rather than getting in there and trying to push, because you don't go in with a 300-pound tiger and push it into a sit. You have to use your training techniques, and you have to use other techniques to get the animal to offer it, to put its body in that position for you, so then you can reward. And also working with birds. Birds are one of those animals that are naturally very nervous around people, so you get to, if you force them, they're just going to fly away or become afraid of you. So a lot of it is you had to use intelligence and knowledge of what the animal is trying to tell you to learn that when you need to approach and when you need to back off.
Thank you. Well, we know at AZ Dog Smart Academy that you love teaching. So can you tell me, out of the entire course, what your favorite part of the course is to teach?
One of my favorite parts. One of my favorite parts that I love is when I take students and we'll actually go to the dog park and to watch dog body language and communication, and to use basically what they learn in class and be able to apply it to a real life setting. So we go and we watch the dogs interact, and they get to see dogs greet each other. They get to see dogs that get along, occasionally sometimes dogs that don't get along, but they're allowed to use what they've learned, and they start looking at dogs differently as opposed to when they went to the dog park before and it was just a bunch of dogs running around. Once they've learned those techniques, we've stayed there for hours, and they keep wanting to watch more and more dogs interact because they want to see what the next dog does when it comes through the gate.
That's interesting. Thank you. Will, can you tell me about an aha moment that really resonated with you when working with a student?
Oh, yeah, actually, very recently I had a student who really loved her dog, probably maybe a little too much, and she always saw her dog almost like it was a child. And one of the things that she learned through working is that she could love her dog as an animal, and by treating it as a dog, she actually formed a better relationship, because trying to treat it like a child was really one-sided, because she was treating it like a child, but the dog wasn't treating her like a child would, and so there was some confusion in their relationship. But after she learned that it was okay to appreciate him as a dog, and then at the same time it actually strengthened their relationship because she learned to communicate to him in a method he understood.
Awesome, thank you for that.